Hey, if you're hearing this in the middle of the night, then maybe you're like me. Someone who's spent countless nights not sleeping. Not because of insomnia, but because the mind just won't settle. I used to think I stayed awake because of worry. Work, responsibilities, deadlines. But the longer I live, the more I realize there are nights when we can't sleep simply because the soul needs to be heard. There's a voice inside. Quiet. Subtle. We hear it, but during the day we drown it out. We stay busy, we stay distracted. We scroll, we binge, we run. Anything but sit still. But then the noise fades, and in that silence, the voice begins to speak. I call them existential whispers. They don't shout, they don't demand answers. They simply ask, softly, who am I? Am I truly living or just repeating? If I disappear tomorrow, would anyone remember who I was or just what I did? Sounds philosophical, doesn't it? But I'm not a philosopher. Just a man who has sat in the stillness of the night, alone with those questions, not to solve them, but to stop running from them. There was a time when silence terrified me. I played music while working, left YouTube running while eating, scrolled endlessly before bed. I thought I needed distraction, but now I know I was running from myself. I used to mock people who talked about meaning and purpose, thought they had too much free time or lived too far from reality. But now I understand they don't live far from reality. They've just stopped denying the truth that we all secretly feel, but avoid. Friend, I'm not here to teach you anything. I have no lessons, no steps to change your life. And honestly, I don't even know if these words will help you fall asleep or keep you awake. But I do know this. If you're still listening in the quiet of your night, then something in you is still open. And that is enough. Tonight, I'll tell you 15 stories. Not lectures, not theories, just stories I've heard, lived, written down. Each one a small mirror, reflecting truths we often know but forget how to feel. Every story is a candle. Not bright, but enough to light one small corner of your soul. You don't need to stay awake for all of them. Fall asleep whenever you want. In fact, if you do, I'm happy for you. Because sometimes the real awakening happens not when the eyes are open, but when the heart feels safe enough to rest. So here it is. The first story. And the question I've probably asked myself 1,000 times. Who am I in this vast, fleeting life? To begin answering that, let me tell you about someone I once met.
Part 1. Who am I in this world? I used to think the question, who am I, was for the dreamers. People who read philosophy, sip coffee alone, and stare out the window midday. But then I, the practical one, always busy, always rational, was forced to face that very question. And not in the way I expected. It was a gray morning in early winter. I went to visit an old friend in the hospital. He had just survived a stroke. The doctor said he was lucky. His brain was injured, but he made it through. When I entered the room, he looked at me, alert, eyes open, and asked, "Who am I?" I laughed, thinking he was joking, but he didn't laugh back. He looked at me like a lost child. He didn't remember his name, didn't remember his wife, or his children. Didn't know where he was. And strangely, he wasn't panicked. He just quietly, calmly asked again and again, "Who am I?" I visited him often over the following weeks. He slowly relearned how to write, how to speak. But what shocked me most was this. He didn't remember who he used to be. Yet somehow, he seemed more at peace. He smiled more, complained less, didn't worry about work or money or the world. One day I reminded him that he used to be a company director. He just laughed. "He must have been busy, huh? I just like watching the clouds now." And that's when it hit me. We think identity is memory, our job, our title, our history. But if we lost all of that tomorrow, would we still be ourselves? The answer is yes, and perhaps even more truly ourselves than before. I started questioning myself. If I lost my job, lost the title, if no one online knew who I was, would I still feel like I mattered? The truth is, maybe not. Because I'd tied my worth to what I do for too long. So, friend, if you've ever felt lost, unsure of who you are, know that you are not alone. We all ask, "Who am I?" Even if we're too scared to say it out loud. But maybe the answer isn't in your resume, not in your memories. Maybe it's in how you show up, right now, in this exact breath. You don't have to remember who you are, just choose to live fully in this moment. And sometimes that is enough.
Part 2. Does life have any meaning? There was a time in my life when I searched for meaning like a man dying of thirst. I devoured books, attended lectures, listened to every wise-sounding voice I could find. I thought, if I can just understand the why, everything will fall into place. But the more I searched, the more I found silence. And then I met someone who answered that question without ever trying. It happened in a small coastal town, the kind of place tourists take photos and forget. I was passing through, looking for a quiet weekend, and stumbled across an old man sitting on a plastic stool by the street. He had a beat-up radio, a half-eaten orange, and a smile that never left his face. He was a beggar, or so I assumed. Tattered shirt, sunburnt skin, eyes wrinkled from too many sunrises. And yet, there was something about him, something unshakably content. I watched as people walked by. Some dropped coins, some didn't even look. He smiled either way. Eventually, curiosity got the better of me. I bought a bottle of water and handed it to him. He looked up, grinned, and said, "The sky is extra blue today, isn't it?" I nodded, unsure what to say. Then he added, "But even when it's gray, I still love watching it." We talked for almost an hour. Well, he talked, I listened. He spoke of seagulls, the rhythm of the waves, how some ants build better homes than humans. Not once did he mention being poor. Not once did he complain. At one point, I asked him, "Don't you ever wonder what life is all about?" He looked genuinely puzzled, then chuckled, "Why would I? Life's not a riddle. It's a dance. You don't solve a dance. You move with it." That night, I lay in bed, unable to sleep. Not because I was anxious, but because something in me had shifted. All those years, I'd been dissecting life like a scientist, trying to define it, measure it, pin it down like a butterfly in a glass box. But this man, with no money, no titles, no plans, he lived it, without needing to explain it. And I started to wonder,
What if life isn't something to figure out? What if it's something to feel moment by moment? What if meaning isn't hidden in some ancient book or grand philosophy, but in the way we watch the sky, eat an orange, smile at a stranger, even when no one's watching? I'm not saying we should stop thinking, but maybe we've overthought ourselves into exhaustion. Maybe the purpose of life is simply to live it well, to notice, to feel, to care. And maybe that's enough. If you're lying there right now with questions in your chest and no clear answers, it's okay. Let the questions be there. Let them breathe. Don't rush to solve them. Maybe they're not puzzles to fix, but seeds meant to grow in silence. And as you drift into sleep, just know you don't have to figure it all out. Not tonight. Not ever. Just feel the weight of the blanket, the rhythm of your breath, the miracle that somehow you're here. That's meaning enough for now.
Part 3. Is freedom truly freedom? I used to romanticize freedom. You know, the kind of freedom where you drop everything, disappear into the mountains, leave behind the emails, the traffic, the noise. A life with no alarm clocks, no bosses, no expectations. Just you and the wild. And for a moment, I lived it. She was someone I met in my late 20s. A woman with wild hair, sharp eyes, and a laugh that scared off seriousness. She quit her job in the city, sold everything, and moved to a small wooden cabin near a river. She called it returning to herself. I visited her once out of curiosity. No signal, no electricity, just firewood, canned beans, and the sound of her dog barking at the moon. At first, I was in awe. She seemed free, untouched by the world, waking when she wanted, writing poetry in the mornings, bathing in the river like some forgotten goddess. But over time, the cracks appeared. Not in the cabin, in her eyes. She missed her sister's wedding because she couldn't be around people. She hadn't called her father in months. She cried once over a broken jar of honey like it was the end of the world. And one morning she looked at me and whispered, "No one told me freedom could be this lonely." A year later, she moved back to the city, got a modest job, started volunteering at a shelter. And for the first time since I met her, she looked alive. Not free in the aesthetic sense, but grounded, connected, committed to something beyond herself. That's when I realized we often chase freedom like a child chasing bubbles, beautiful, fleeting, and empty when caught. We think freedom means no responsibility, but true freedom might mean the opposite. The freedom to choose, yes, but also the courage to commit to something, to someone, to life in all its mess and meaning. You're not truly free until you know exactly what you're giving yourself to, and you choose it anyway. So if tonight you're lying in bed, wishing you could run away, disappear, escape, I understand. But ask yourself, what are you running toward? And when you get there, will it make you feel less alone? Because sometimes the freest people I've met are the ones who wake up early, care deeply, and stay anyway. Freedom isn't the absence of weight. It's choosing which weight is worth carrying, and carrying it fully, proudly, with both hands.
Part 4. Are we afraid of death or afraid of truly living? Death used to terrify me. The thought of not existing, of fading away into some blank, cold nothingness, it kept me up at night. made me hold my breath in elevators, made me check my heartbeat when things got too quiet. But then I met a child who changed everything. He was 10, he had leukemia, and he knew he didn't have much time left. I met him through a friend who volunteered at the hospital. I didn't know what to expect. Maybe sadness, maybe fear. What I didn't expect was joy. He greeted me like an old buddy, told me about his favorite dinosaur, asked if I believed in aliens, and laughed a lot. I asked him one afternoon, "Are you scared?" He paused, looked out the window, then said, "Not really. I'm just sad I won't get to grow a beard." Then he grinned, "But hey, not shaving sounds pretty awesome too." That night, I couldn't sleep. Not because of fear, but shame. Here I was, fully grown, healthy, wasting days worrying about things that didn't matter, living halfway, always waiting for the perfect moment. And there he was, facing death with more life than I'd ever shown. And I realized, most of us aren't afraid of death. We're afraid of dying without ever having truly lived. We're afraid of loving too deeply, of failing too visibly, of dreaming too wildly. So we play small, we keep safe, and in doing so, we die a little every day. But what if we stopped waiting? What if we said the thing we've been meaning to say? Started the project we've been putting off? Held the hand we keep pretending not to miss? What if we risked being fully alive, even if it meant sometimes being heartbroken, disappointed, or lost? Because the alternative is to never really feel anything at all. Friend, you don't have to conquer death tonight. Just don't let fear of it stop you from living this one precious, fleeting night. Breathe in. Feel the aliveness in your chest. Know that it's okay to be scared. But don't let the fear make your life small. Live big. Love foolishly. Laugh loudly. And if death comes, let it find you fully alive.
Part 6. Is happiness something we hold or something we plant? There was a time in my life when I thought happiness was something you chased, like a prize. You work hard, you earn it, you hold on to it. And if it slips away, you just run faster. But it never lasted. Every time I thought I had it, it vanished, like trying to catch light with your hands. And then I met a man who changed the way I see happiness forever. He was in his 80s, lived in a quiet village, owned nothing but a small patch of land, a faded wooden house, and a garden. Every morning, rain or shine, he'd get up before dawn and tend to a single sapling, a fragile, barely alive little tree. I asked him once, "Why do you take care of this tree so carefully?" He smiled, didn't even look up, and said, "Because I won't live long enough to sit under its shade." That answer stayed with me. He wasn't watering that tree for himself. He was doing it for someone he'd never meet, for a future he'd never see. And he was happy. Not the loud kind, not the champagne kind, but the quiet, steady kind. The kind that doesn't need to be seen to be real. And I began to wonder, what if happiness isn't something you find? What if it's something you plant? What if it's not a moment to capture, but a habit of nurturing. Day after day, with no guarantee of bloom.
Part 5. Do people truly understand us? There's a strange kind of loneliness that doesn't come from being alone. It comes from being surrounded, yet unseen. You laugh at the right time, you answer messages, you show up to dinners, birthdays, Zoom calls, and still, deep down, you wonder if anyone actually gets you. I once knew someone who was loved by everyone. He was the kind of guy people wanted to be around, the center of every room. Funny, kind, charismatic. But one night, after a long day, we sat on his balcony in silence. He sipped his drink and said, almost too quietly, "I feel like I've been performing for so long, I'm not sure if I know who I am underneath it anymore." I didn't know what to say, because I'd felt it too. That ache of being misunderstood. Not because others are cruel, but because they only ever see the version of you you're safe enough to show. The edited you. The agreeable you. The easy to digest you. And I've learned something. People don't misunderstand us out of malice. Most of the time, they simply don't have access to the full picture because we never gave it to them. We hide, we filter, we water ourselves down, hoping it'll make us easier to love. But it doesn't. It just makes the connection feel hollow. So, what do we do? Do we shout, "You don't understand me"? Do we isolate even more? Or maybe we start small. We say something honest, even if it's messy. We tell someone we trust, "Actually, I'm not okay today." We show someone the behind the scenes, not just the highlight reel. And maybe, just maybe, they'll stay. They'll listen. They'll see you. Not the version of you you've polished, but the you that breathes beneath it all. If you're lying in bed right now, feeling unseen, I want you to know something. You are not invisible. I see you. Not your job, not your profile. You. The one who tries. The one who doubts. The one who shows up even when it's hard. And one day, someone else will see that too. Just don't stop being real. Because the more real you are, the closer they can get. Even in the dark.
Part 7. Choice or fate? There's a moment in everyone's life when they wonder, did I choose this life or did it choose me? We talk about free will, destiny, alignment, but when you're sitting at a crossroads, heart aching, unsure, the lines blur. I remember a day, not long ago, when I missed a train. It was nothing dramatic. I slept 5 minutes too long, spilled coffee on my shirt. By the time I reached the platform, the train was gone. At the time, I cursed under my breath, angry at myself, frustrated by fate. I had a meeting scheduled, people waiting, a plan perfectly timed, now shattered. I sat on a bench, defeated, watching the next train countdown tick slowly, when someone sat beside me. She was holding a sketchbook. Our eyes met. She smiled and said, "Funny how delays bring people together." We started talking about art, about life, about nothing in particular. And when the next train arrived, we kept talking. Let it pass. That 5-minute mistake turned into 3 hours. That delay turned into a friendship I didn't know I needed. So I ask again, was that fate or choice? Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe what matters is how we respond when life breaks from the script. Maybe the point isn't whether something was meant to happen, but what we choose to make of it once it does. We like to think life is either or, that we're either in control or completely at the mercy of the stars. But maybe life is a dance. Fate plays the music, we choose how to move. You're not responsible for every note life plays, but you are responsible for how you step, how you sway, how you stay in rhythm, even when it changes suddenly. So if tonight you're asking, did I choose this? Am I stuck with this? Here's my thought. Maybe the question isn't choice or fate. Maybe it's, now that I'm here, how will I live it? Because some of life's best chapters begin with a missed train, a wrong turn, a door that didn't open. But you stayed. You listened. You said yes to something unexpected. And sometimes that's where life truly begins.
Part 8. Is loneliness a punishment or a gift? Loneliness has a certain texture, doesn't it? It's not always pain. Sometimes it's just the quiet hum in the background, like a song on repeat that no one else hears. It shows up in crowded rooms, in busy mornings, in long conversations that somehow feel hollow. And for a long time, I treated loneliness like a disease, something to fix, to escape, to drown in distractions, noise, screens, company that filled the air but not the soul. Then I met someone who made peace with it, a woman in her 60s, living alone in a mountain village. No Wi-Fi, no visitors, just a garden, 2 goats, and time. I asked her, "Don't you ever get lonely out here?" She laughed, not in pity, but in surprise. Lonely? I've never had more company in my life. She waved at the sky, the birds, the dirt under her fingernails. Everything here speaks. I just finally learned how to listen. And that night, as I lay in the tiny guest room she offered, I felt something shift in me. The silence didn't feel empty anymore. It felt full, like it had been waiting for me to stop filling it with fear. You see, we often mistake solitude for punishment. We forget that some of the greatest transformations happen in silence. The seed must be alone before it breaks open. The cocoon must be still before the butterfly emerges. The soul must withdraw before it can return stronger. Loneliness isn't always a lack of connection. Sometimes it's the space we need to reconnect to ourselves, to something deeper than words, to a presence that's always been there but drowned out by the crowd. So if tonight you're lying in bed with that familiar ache in your chest, that quiet, invisible weight, know this: you are not broken. You are not less because you're alone. You are in a moment of stillness that may be shaping you in ways you can't see yet. And one day, when the world gets loud again, you'll carry a silence inside you that keeps you whole. Loneliness isn't exile. It's invitation. Not a void, but a doorway. Walk through it gently, and you might just find you were never truly alone to begin with.
Part 9. Does beauty need to be seen to be real? I once believed beauty had to be witnessed to exist. A painting needs eyes. A song needs ears. A sunset is only beautiful if someone pauses to look. But that belief, it began to crack when I met a man who painted in the dark. He lived in a quiet town by the hills, a recluse. Most people didn't even know his name. They just called him the ghost with paint on his hands. I met him through a cousin. He didn't talk much, just nodded and led me to a small studio behind his house. And inside, hundreds of canvases, layer after layer of color, emotion, silence turned into form. They were breathtaking, but none of them had ever been shown. Not sold, not signed, not even photographed. I asked him, "Why don't you share these with the world?"
He shrugged, then said something I'll never forget. I didn't paint them to be seen. I painted them to remember I'm still alive. That line stayed with me. How much of our lives are built around being seen? How often do we do things not because they feel true, but because they'll look good, impress someone, make noise? But beauty, true beauty, doesn't need applause. It doesn't need validation. It simply is. There's a flower that blooms once every 10 years, in the middle of nowhere. No camera, no crowd. It still blooms. There's a whale that sings a song no other whale seems to hear. It still sings. There's a child who dances alone in their room, eyes closed, joy radiating. They still dance. So what if we stopped performing beauty and started feeling it? What if we created things that mattered to us, even if no one clapped? What if we wore what made us feel alive, spoke truths that were hard, wrote words no one may read, but helped us breathe? Tonight, as you lie in the dark, I want you to remember, your beauty doesn't depend on who sees it. You, as you are, unfiltered, unpublished, unshared, are still worthy. There is beauty in the way you care, in the quiet you carry, in the wounds you've survived that no one else knows about. Let the world sleep. Let the lights dim. You don't need a spotlight to shine. You are beautiful, even in the unseen places. Maybe, especially there.
Part 10. Is forgiveness a release or a surrender? I used to think forgiveness was about them, the person who hurt you, the one who walked away, the one who should have said sorry but never did. And for a long time, I refused, because I thought forgiving meant saying, what you did was okay. And it wasn't. But then something happened. Something I never saw coming. I met a woman who had lost her only son. He was taken from her in a violent, senseless act, the kind of pain you read about and hope never comes close to your life. The man who did it went to prison. And yet, she visited him. Not to confront him, not to curse him, but to forgive him. I asked her why. How? She said, because I refuse to carry him with me anymore. She looked me in the eye and whispered, hating him kept me tied to that day. Forgiving him finally set me free. And that's when I understood. Forgiveness isn't saying it's okay. It's saying, I won't let what you did keep living inside me. It's not surrendering to the person. It's surrendering the weight, the anger, the replaying, the need for a different past. Forgiveness isn't weakness. It's wild strength. The kind that chooses peace over pride. The kind that says, I still choose life, even after what happened. But here's the thing. You don't have to rush it. There's no timer on healing, no deadline for letting go. Some wounds take years. Some never fully close. But if you can, little by little, start loosening the grip, you might find your own hands finally free. So tonight, if you're lying there holding on to something heavy, a name, a memory, a moment that still stings, just breathe. You don't have to forgive them tonight, but maybe you can forgive yourself for still carrying it. That's where it starts. Forgiveness isn't a gift you give them. It's a door you open for you.
Part 11. What is success when there's no one left to impress? I spent years chasing success. Deadlines, Titles, applause. I built resumes and reputations. I crafted versions of myself that looked accomplished. And for a while, it worked. People admired me. Doors opened. Invitations came. But then one day, I got everything I thought I wanted and felt nothing. That was the night I sat alone in a hotel room overlooking a skyline filled with lights and felt like a stranger to my own life. There was no one to call, no one who'd understand what I'd given up to get here. I had won the race and realized I had no one to share the finish line with. It made me think of a man I once met in a quiet village. He was a retired businessman, used to own companies, employ hundreds, be on magazine covers, but he gave it all away. Moved to a small town, volunteered at the local school, read books, planted trees. When I asked why, he said simply, "Because no one remembers what I did. They only remember how I made them feel." Success, it turns out, is not about how high you climb, but what stays when the crowd leaves. It's not the trophy on the shelf, but the peace in your chest when the lights go out. It's not the standing ovation, but the quiet nod you give yourself in the mirror. So what happens when there's no one left to impress? You begin living for the one person who was there all along. You. The you that doesn't need validation to feel worthy, the you that keeps promises no one sees, the you that would still choose integrity even if it cost everything. Tonight, as you lie in bed, ask yourself, if the world stopped watching, would I still choose this path? If yes, that's success, even if no one claps. Because the loudest applause you'll ever need is the stillness of a soul at peace.
Part 13. Does the world need me at all? There were days, I'll be honest, when I wondered if I mattered at all. When I felt like a tiny thread in a tapestry too vast to notice me. When the world kept spinning, emails kept arriving, news kept flashing, and I thought, if I disappeared tomorrow, would anything change? Maybe you felt it too. That quiet ache of invisibility. Not the loud kind, but the kind that sneaks in while you're folding laundry or waiting at a red light. The question doesn't shout. It just lingers. Do I even matter? One morning, years ago, I saw a man sweeping the sidewalk outside a small bookstore. No one noticed him. People walked past. Some bumped into him. He didn't flinch, just kept sweeping. I passed him every day. One time I stopped and asked, "Do you do this every morning?" He smiled. "For 20 years. Then he added, almost like a secret, "I come early so the kids who walk to school don't step on broken glass." No one ever thanked him. There were no plaques, no Instagram posts, just a man, a broom, and a quiet belief that what he did mattered. And it did. It still does. We think we have to be loud to make an impact, to lead, to change the world. But sometimes the most necessary people are the ones who never ask for attention. They just show up, again and again, in small, invisible ways that hold the world together. So if tonight you're lying there, questioning your worth, I need you to hear this. You matter. Not because of your title, or your achievements, or how many people know your name. You matter because of the quiet ways you love, the way you remember to call, the way you hold space when someone is falling apart, the way you keep going, even when no one sees. The world may not thank you,
but it needs you, even if it doesn't know how to say so. If you ever wonder, does the world need me at all? Know this. If you are kind, if you care, if you carry light even in the dark, then yes, it needs you more than you know.
Part 14. Is awakening the end goal? There was a time I thought awakening was a destination, a mountaintop moment, a flash of lightning where everything made sense. No more doubt, no more fear, just clarity. I chased it. Meditation retreats, spiritual books, long nights of asking questions the stars didn't answer. And then I met a teacher. Not in robes, not in temples, but a man selling tea on the side of a mountain road. I asked him, "How do you know when you've awakened?" He poured me a cup, smiled, and said, "When you stop needing to." I didn't understand. Not then. It felt like a riddle, like a brush off. But that evening, I watched him close his stall. He swept the leaves, fed the stray dog that always waited nearby, sang softly to himself, then walked home, slow, content, unnoticed. And it hit me, awakening isn't some grand finale. It's not reserved for saints or sages. It's not something you earn after enough effort. It's something that happens quietly, when you stop trying to escape life and start inhabiting it fully, gently, exactly as it is. It's in how you peel an orange, how you say "I'm sorry," how you listen to someone, not to reply, but to understand. It's not in knowing everything, it's in being okay with not knowing and still showing up. So maybe awakening isn't the end goal. Maybe it's a rhythm, a return, a remembering. Not once, but again and again, every time we choose presence over perfection. Part 15. Am I just a passing wind through this world? Sometimes, late at night, when everything is quiet and the streetlights stretch their shadows across the wall, I find myself asking, will anything I do truly last? Am I just a breath, here and gone? The world is so vast, time moves so fast, and I feel so small. We build, we strive, we love, we lose. And still, eventually, everything fades. Photos yellow, voices grow faint, even the strongest names are slowly swallowed by history. So what's the point? Why try? Why care? A few years ago, I visited a forgotten cemetery in a countryside town I stumbled upon by accident. Most of the names on the stones had eroded. No flowers, no visitors, just wind, dust, and silence. But near the edge, there was a small wooden sign, handwritten, almost falling apart. It read, "To the one who loved quietly." No name, no dates, just that. And I stood there for a long time. Whoever that person was, they lived, they loved, maybe not famously, but deeply. And someone, somewhere, remembered. That's when I realized maybe we're not meant to leave monuments. Maybe we're meant to leave imprints. Small, invisible traces on the lives we touch. Not in history books, but in someone's mourning, someone's courage, someone's softness
they didn't have before they met us. So yes, maybe we are just passing winds, but wind can move oceans. Wind can carry seeds. Wind can whisper truths that stay long after the sound fades. And you don't have to be eternal to be meaningful. You just have to be real, here, now, with whoever is in front of you. Love well, forgive gently, speak honestly, and let your life be the kind of breeze that cools someone's heat without ever needing to be seen. As you lie here tonight, maybe ready to drift into sleep, just know you mattered. You still matter, even if no one said it today. You are not forgotten. You are not wasted. You are not too late. You're exactly the kind of quiet that makes the world softer. Let the wind pass through you. Let it carry what's heavy. Let it leave only what's true. Sleep well, passing soul. You've walked far, and now you can rest. Thank you for staying, for listening, for letting these quiet words keep you company in the dark. In a world that rarely pauses, you chose to slow down, and that means everything. You don't need to have it all figured out. You're here. You are breathing, and that's enough. Sleep well. You are not alone. You are not forgotten. Thank you, truly,